Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the April 13th, 2020 Montgomery County Formal Commission meeting. We're going to call on Sheriff John Fuson to call our meeting to order. Sheriff Fuson.
Yes, sir. All rise. Oh, yes. This Honorable Board of County Commissioners is now in session pursuant to adjournment. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners.
Commissioner Rasnick, would you please lead us in the pledge?
All right. If everybody would please address the flag behind the mayor. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Joe Creek, would you please give our invocation? Commissioner Creek, would you give our invocation?
Our Father and our God, we thank you again for all that you've done for us. We pray that you'll lead, guide, and direct us now and put this farce thing behind us. We need your help, Lord. It says in the Bible, "In thee, O Lord, I put my trust, for thou art my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me." Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Creek. Commissioners, I'm going to ask Ms. Jackson to please call the roll. Ms. Jackson, all microphones are on. If you would, please call the roll.
Gannon.
Present.
Mr. King. Smith.
Present.
Commissioner Ricky Ray.
Present.
Commissioner Rashida Leverett.
Present.
Commissioner Arnold Hodges.
Present.
Commissioner Brandon Butts.
Present.
Commissioner Tangi Smith. Commissioner Tangi Smith. Commissioner Tangi Smith. Commissioner Chandler.
Present.
Commissioner Lewis.
Present.
Commissioner Creek.
Present.
Commissioner Pritchard.
Present.
Commissioner Woodruff.
Present.
Commissioner Beal.
Here.
Commissioner Harper.
Present.
Commissioner Bryant.
Present.
Commissioner Rasnick.
Present.
Commissioner Knight.
Present.
Commissioner Johnson.
Present.
Commissioner Albert.
Present.
Commissioner Riccone.
Present.
I see Tangi Smith, Mayor, but I do not know if she can hear us. Commissioner Tangi Smith.
Well, I see her as well, so you can mark her present. Would you please tally the roll, please?
20 present, 1 absent.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, we have no presentations or zoning resolutions tonight. We'll go right into our resolutions. And without objection, I'm going to ask to suspend the rules. And if we see no hands raised, the rules will be suspended and we'll proceed to vote on Resolution 2411. Do we see any hands raised? No hands raised. So Resolution 2411 is a resolution to establish a consent agenda as part of the internal operating rules of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, is there a second? Commissioner Johnson. Any discussion on 2411? If you would, please hit your raise hand button. Commissioner Gannon.
No, I didn't have a question. I thought we were voting.
Commissioner Knight.
Same.
Commissioner Knight, do you have a question?
No question. It's the same statement that Commissioner Gannon just gave.
Please have them take their hands down, please.
If you would, please take your hands down on your computers. Commissioner Gannon, your hand is still raised. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson, would you do a roll call vote, please, ma'am? All microphones are unmuted.
I vote yes. I don't understand where we raise our hand or where we raise our hand on the screen is what my question was.
Please let Ms. Jackson call the roll for the vote.
Commissioner Gannon,
Ms. Jackson, you're gonna have to speak up a little bit. We can barely hear you.
Commissioner Gannon, Dean,
Yes.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butts,
Yes.
Angie Smith, Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Deal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
You have 20 yeses.
Would anyone like to change their vote?
Mayor Durr,
Jackson?
I vote yes. Mayor Durr, I couldn't hear y'all until I put my earpods in, but my vote is
Okay.
yes.
We have you as a yes vote, Commissioner Tangi Smith. Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
You have 21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, our next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the County Commission and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the County Commission may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under resolutions. I will now read the consent agenda. Resolution 24-1, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners appropriating funds for design fees for a 12 classroom addition to Barksdale Elementary School. Resolution 24-2, resolution regarding per diem compensation for County Board of Equalization members and alternates. Resolution 24-3, resolution amending the budget of Montgomery County Information Technology for the implementation of new point of sales device, update audio system for courtroom 403, and implement of a new reporting system. Resolution 24-5, resolution to apply to the State of Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration Office of Criminal Justice Programs for the Mental Health Transport Grant. Resolution 24-9, resolution of the Montgomery County Board of Commissioners to authorize the use of space in the Veterans Plaza for use by the on-site medical facilities of Montgomery County and for the daily operation thereof. Also on the consent agenda will be the adoption of the commission minutes dated March 9th, 2020, the county clerk's report and notary list, and also the nominating committee nominations. Commissioners, are there any items you wish to remove from the consent agenda? If you would, please raise your hand button. Who?
Arnold Hodges.
Commissioner Hodges. Is there an item you'd like to remove?
No.
Any commissioners, any items to remove? Commissioner Garland Johnson.
I don't have anything I want to remove, but just as a point of clarification, 24-8 was not included in the consent agenda. Has it been removed, or is that was that just an oversight?
No, sir, it will be approved in our normal resolution process.
All right, well, it had an asterisk. That's why I was asking.
There's been a change to that one, and we felt it'd be best to put it under the normal process of voting on individual resolutions.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
With no items removed from the consent agenda, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Commissioner Rasnick, second. Commissioner Garland Johnson. Any discussion on the consent agenda? If you would, please hit your raise hand button. Commissioner Auburn.
I'm trying to get it to raise. So it's
Do you
raised.
have a question?
No, sir.
Commissioner Harper.
No question. I thought that's how we were voting.
We did this last time.
Okay, we see no questions. Commissioners, just for your information, every vote will be a roll call vote. So,
Okay.
Ms. Jackson, would you please do a roll call vote for the consent agenda?
Gannon,
Yes.
Commissioner Key,
Yes.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett, Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Tangi Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
I have 21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Our consent agenda is approved. Our next resolution is Resolution 24-4, resolution to approve bylaw changes to the Clarksville Montgomery County Community Health Foundation Incorporated. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Rasnick, second. Commissioner Woodruff. Any discussion? If you would, please hit your hands raised button for discussion. Commissioner Beal.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to reiterate what I said at our informal meeting. I believe that 15 years is way too long for this particular term. So I'm going to ask everybody to vote against this. Thank you.
Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Basically, I just want to reiterate what we said last week, that, again, reiterating what Commissioner Beal said, is 15 years is too much. And shoot, I'd almost recommend that committee go back and look at it, maybe tighten up some of these years. But I urge my commissioners to vote no as well. Thank you.
Commissioner Harper.
I reiterate what Commissioner Gannon and Commissioner Beal said. 15 years is way too long. Thanks.
All right, Commissioners, we have a motion and a second for approval for Resolution 24-4. Ms. Jackson, would you please do a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. And I would like to make a correction. We do have 21 present instead of 20 present.
Thank you.
Gannon,
If you said Gannon, I vote no.
Commissioner King,
I vote no.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
I vote no.
Commissioner Ricky Ray,
No.
Brett,
No.
Commissioner Hodges,
No.
Commissioner Butts,
No.
Commissioner Tangi Smith,
No.
Commissioner Chandler,
No.
Commissioner Lewis,
No.
Commissioner Creek,
No.
Commissioner Pritchard,
No.
Commissioner Woodruff,
No.
Commissioner Beal,
No.
Commissioner Harper,
No.
Commissioner Bryant,
No.
Commissioner Rasnick,
No.
Commissioner Knight,
No.
Commissioner Johnson,
No.
Commissioner Albert,
No.
Commissioner Riccone.
No.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
21 noes.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 24-4 fails. Resolution 24-6, resolution to appropriate additional funding to make certain immediate improvements to the public safety complex. Commissioners, if you have a question, please use your raise hand button.
Motion second.
I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself. Is there a motion for approval for 24-6?
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick, second. Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? If you would, please hit your raise hand button now. Commissioner Harper.
I'm too late. Sorry about that.
Commissioner Auburn.
No, I shouldn't have my hand up. Sorry.
Commissioner Gannon.
I do? I didn't know I had my hand up.
Other hands.
We have no other questions. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Jackson, would you please call the roll, call the vote?
Commissioner Gannon,
I vote yes.
King,
Yes.
Joe Smith, Joe Smith, Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Butts,
I vote yes.
G. Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yeah.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
21 yeses.
24-6 is approved. Our next item is Resolution 24-7, resolution to amend the budgets of various funds for fiscal year 2020 in certain areas of revenues and expenditures. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Rasnick, is there a second? Commissioner Beal, if you have any questions, please hit your raise hand button.
Joe Smith.
Commissioner Joe Smith.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Gannon. I apologize.
Commissioner Gannon.
I didn't raise my hand.
He needs to push the button. His hand's still up.
Seeing no further questions, we'll now vote, ask Ms. Jackson to do a roll call vote on 24-7.
Commissioner Gannon,
I vote yes.
Commissioner King,
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butts,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Tangi Smith,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yep.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 24-8, resolution enacting the grant of powers and authority upon declaration of an emergency. Tim, we made a slight adjustment to this. Would you go through that adjustment real quick?
Seem to have the red line. You should have received a red line version. If you looked at it on Dropbox, the change was really quite simple. At the time the draft was written to meet your local rules, your procedural rules to go to the budget committee, there had been only one order issued and one declaration of emergency. Since that time, there have been 3 other orders entered. And so this adds to the resolution those subsequent 3 orders. So you're approving the emergency authorizations of the mayor that were outlined in all the orders that have been made to date.
So is there a motion for approval?
Motion to amend approved. Yeah.
Commissioner Gannon, is there a second? Commissioner Joe Smith. Any questions on 24-8? If you would, please hit your hand raise button.
We hadn't voted on it yet.
That's right. That's what, I'm sorry.
I don't see any questions.
We see no questions. Ms. Jackson, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Gannon,
Yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
I vote yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Everett, Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butts,
Yes.
Commissioner Angie Smith,
Yes.
Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
We have 21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, Resolution 2410 has been pulled from the agenda. We will now go to new business. I'm going to ask again, without objections, to suspend the rules to hear Resolution 2412. If you object to suspending the rules, please hit your raise hand button. If not, the rules will be suspended. We see no hands raised. Resolution 2412. Commissioner Beal.
Mayor, do we not have to vote on 24-8 as amended?
Technically do. We're voting on the motion to amend it. We should have a vote on the motion as the resolution as amended.
I disagree with you, but if that's what you think we need to do.
I do think.
So, Ms. Jackson, I guess what the question is on 24-8, we voted to amend it. So can you reload your system to now vote on 24-8 as amended?
That's what I thought.
Yes, sir. I'm ready whenever you are, Mayor.
If you would, please roll call vote.
Commissioner Gannon,
24-8, I vote yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
I vote yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butts,
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
I'm gonna vote yes, but I didn't hear anyone make a formal motion to amend.
That passed.
That's already passed.
Okay. Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote on 24-8 as amended?
21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, I will again, under new business, without objection, if we see no hands raised, we'll suspend the rules to hear resolution 2412. No. We see no hands raised. Resolution 2412, resolution to alter the procedures for public hearings to be conducted as required by law before the Montgomery County Commission. I'm going to ask Mr. Harvey to briefly explain this resolution to you before we call for a motion and a second.
We have previously allowed the public hearings to take place by a person registering their name, the mayor or the chair would call out anyone who'd like to speak for or against in an orderly fashion, and he could limit that to a reasonable number. Under the circumstances, we no longer have an open session where the public can submit their required positions or comments. So this is to create a procedural forum so that the public on the Friday before our meetings on Monday or Tuesday can submit in writing their comments. That fulfills the public hearing requirement. If they're given the same reasonable opportunity to make those comments in writing, then those will be delivered to you in your Dropbox as soon as they're received on the Friday before, and you'll have those public comments. It's simply authorizing a new procedure because we have no physical public setting.
Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Rasnick, is there a second? Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? Commissioner Knight?
Yes, so with this particular procedure being a new procedure, is this going to be temporary considering the fact that we suspended the rules in order to have these WebEx meetings? Are we just temporarily having this particular resolution enacted, or will it go back to how it was previously once we have in-person meetings?
It's not written as a temporary resolution. And I'll suggest to you, Commissioner, we really don't know how long we're going to be in this setting. There are currently lots of public meetings that are conducted on paper. TDOT routinely has public meetings where they receive hundreds of comment cards during the public session. You'll have a written forum here. This is also being adopted by the sub-agencies of the county. For example, the Regional Planning Commission, they'll conduct their public hearings in the same way. I wrote this so that it's not temporary. I wrote it as I don't want to refer to it as a permanent change because you can always change it again someday. But at this point, we don't know how long we're going to be in this circumstance. This covers all public meetings of any type we have. And I recommend that we do this as a procedural change and then vote to go back to the old situation if and when it seems prudent.
Well, with it being a non-permanent or non-temporary change, that poses an issue of having to actually enact a new resolution to change it if we need to, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I may just add, I think it gives us the right or the ability to use that type of method as a public hearing, but in no way, shape, form, or fashion, when we get back to normal, do I expect or would I expect this body to continue to follow this resolution? It would be business as usual.
Then it'd be contingent upon us going back to normalcy. So just looking at it from, operational standpoint, shouldn't there be some verbiage in there to say, well, it's contingent upon X, Y, and Z, hence us going back to normalcy, and then it goes back to the regular way that we have things, currently previous to this particular resolution. Does that make sense?
Yes, but let me say this: it's not easy to fashion that contingency, and it's not easy to fashion that contingency to know when it's going to occur within the cycle. We're really fortunate that there were no public hearings on our docket tonight. Had there been, we really wouldn't have a way to process that. So my suggestion to you is, as cumbersome as it may feel, when we see that we can revert because we're back to what I'll call the past normal, then we can do that. But there needs to be something in place so the public can exercise their right until we hit that contingency. So if you wanted to say this only lasts 90 days, I'd only suggest to you, how do we know when that hits the cycle in terms of actually having open public meetings? It's hard to predict that contingency.
Okay.
Any other questions? We see no other questions. Commissioner Beal.
Thank you. I'm having kind of the same concerns that Commissioner Knight's having. Would it be as simple as just adding or just making an amendment to make this contingent while we have remote meetings?
The only problem I have as a Scrivener with that is when we decide we're not going to have we are or are not going to have any future remote meeting is a function of the timing and when people will have notice of it. We've got to give them ample notice so they can get their comments in. We produce that agenda. We give them notice they can come and hear. So if you just put a draconian date in there that says, when we decide we're going to have a public meeting, when we decide we're going back to the commission chambers, for one of us, for a simpler phrase, you said that the next time we go to the commission chambers and we're all together, then we'll revert to that. We will have had to have met all the notice requirements up to that point. I'm just saying it's hard to pick a contingency that helps. I am not suggesting at all that it's not cumbersome, but we can easily pass a resolution to revert back to the old procedure.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have a motion and a second, Ms. Jackson?
So you have a motion by Commissioner Rasnick and a second by Commissioner Pritchard.
Okay, any other discussion?
Unless John Gannon's is still up accidentally.
Commissioner Gannon?
Lower my hand here. All right, so it's lowered. Are we aware?
Do you have a question, Commissioner Gannon?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do we have any zoning cases for next month?
I think we expect one. They can always be pulled, but I think according to the Regional Planning Commission, we just happened to hit a lucky moment that gave us an extra month to look at how to handle this. I think we have one next month.
Okay. And Tim, I know you always do your homework and look at things. I know we're a little bit, Tennessee and Clarksville are a little bit behind. We didn't have as much as anybody else, and we didn't have to go to quarantine as quickly. I assume that you've gotten this from other areas and what they're doing with their zoning cases and things of that nature, other counties and municipalities. Where'd you come up with this idea?
I've been working with the Regional Planning Commission because they had matters coming up that required a public hearing. They had to make this decision a couple of weeks ago, and we looked at several municipalities. To be candid with you, the only specific one I can think of was the town of Farragut up in Knox County, Tennessee. But I do remember that was one exemplar I looked at, and it's a simple process, just like this one.
Okay, and I assume that you checked with CTask as well? No? Yes.
I don't remember talking with CTAS. I do remember looking at the definition of public hearings in the CTAS guidelines. I've worked with Lance Baker because the city has the same interest in helping the Regional Planning Commission that we do.
Right.
They handle the same type hearings for the city questions. I may have actually asked CTAS if there was a definition of public hearing. And, you know, I always try to be absolutely accurate. My recollection is that I did talk with CTAS, and we just talked about the conventional definition that's found in the statutes. So I have no doubt that this procedure is authorized and allowed. It could have been your procedure all along, but it does fulfill the requirements of allowing public comment.
Thank you. Thank you, and I urge my other commissioners to vote yes.
Any other questions?
Can you hear me, Mayor?
Yeah, I did.
Commissioner Woodruff.
Yes, sir, Commissioner
Just one
Woodruff.
question. It's been so long since I've been in the chamber. Are we talking about the formal, is it in the formal or informal session, or does it matter?
It will be during our public hearing process on zoning, which occurs during our informal meetings.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Any other questions?
Josh Bill's hand went back up. I'm not sure if that was.
Commissioner Bill, do you have another question? Evidently not. All right, we have a motion and a second on resolution 2412. Ms. Jackson, would you please do a
No, I
roll
do
call
not.
vote?
Sorry. No.
Gannon,
Gannon votes yes.
Commissioner King,
Commissioner King votes yes.
Commissioner Joe Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butts,
Yes.
Commissioner Tangi Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes.
Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
Of 21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 2412 passes. Under old business, commissioners, we have one resolution that was deferred from February and March. It's resolution 224, resolution to amend the inmate medical budget for the Montgomery County Jail and the Montgomery County Workhouse for fiscal year 2020. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Pritchard, is there a second? Commissioner Knight, if you would, if you have questions, please hit your raise hand button. We see no questions. Ms. Jackson, would you please do a roll call vote?
Gannon, Commissioner Gannon,
I vote yes.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Ray,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges,
Yes.
Commissioner Butt,
Yes.
Commissioner Tangi Smith, Commissioner Chandler,
Yes.
Commissioner Lewis,
Yes.
Commissioner Creek,
Yes.
Commissioner Pritchard,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodruff,
Yes.
Commissioner Beal,
Yes.
Commissioner Harper,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Rasnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Knight,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Commissioner Albert,
Yes.
Commissioner Riccone.
Yes. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Jackson, would you please tally the vote?
21 yeses.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, on your agenda, you'll see under your reports filed, there's been three additional reports filed since our informal meeting. That's the Building and Codes monthly report, the Counts and Budgets monthly report, and the Trustees monthly report. And that's all of our reports. Commissioners, we have no announcements. I'll call on Sheriff Fuson to adjourn the meeting.
All right, all rise. Oh, yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners now stands adjourned. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners. Thank you and good night.